Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
Hello, welcome to the Alldus podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. As part of our AI in Action series, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Max Fiedler. Max is the CTO and Managing Director of Nomitri. Max, great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
So Max, before we jump into Nomitri and what the work you're doing there, tell us a little bit about your journey to now and how you actually came up with the idea.
So I have a bit of a mixed background. I started off my career more in the management field. I worked for a strategy consultant called the Boston Consulting Group for a while, and then as a manager at a big insurance company, but then found that my heart actually belongs more to the engineering side. I did a second master's program focusing on machine learning and robotics, and then worked for about 5 years in autonomous driving, mainly on the vision stack as a deep learning dedicated engineer. But throughout all of that, I always had a passion for trying to start my own business with my own idea. And also this gave me the opportunity to nicely combine my two different backgrounds in my new role. And for specifically why we started what we started here at Nomitri, let me give you a little bit of intro. So we are mainly focusing on bringing the field of deep learning, and specifically in the vision domain now, on embedded and portable devices. So being your mobile phones, but also other very small platforms, to make them available to use cases that so far were a bit locked out of classical deep learning approaches because they were just not connected to a cloud, or it wasn't possible to have the powerful compute resource that you would need to run it at that price point or at the location where you would need it.
I always love that when you want to scratch that itch, you go and do something about it and actually set up a company to go and do that, which is really nice. There's no way back.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, me, but also a lot of the people on our team, they worked in academia, they worked in corporate R&D in different positions. And I mean, all of that is very exciting. You get to work on exciting topics with a lot of largesse and freedom. But what you miss is seeing your work actually having a real world impact, at least tangibly and immediately enough for you to really feel it. And so this is also what brought us together here to now say, okay, with everything we've learned, with everything we know, we want to now build real products that affect real people's lives.
So tell us about some of the projects you're working on, the problems you're looking to try to solve, and the challenges that I suppose come up from going to do that work, because I'm guessing there's quite a few, and you can answer those questions whenever order you like.
Maybe I'll start with a little wider context. Why are we specifically focusing on this technology of embedded AI? It is, first of all, relatively new. That's always good if you're a startup, but it also holds quite a lot of promises that can become interesting for different industries. So if you run your AI algorithms fast enough and with high accuracy enough, which just recently became possible and which is something we are pioneering in and where we have our edge, that you can run it on a mobile device or on a very small device that is even battery powered. You can bring that capability to use cases where you are offline or have very low bandwidth, and you can bring it to use cases where you require very low latency, where you require also very low cost. And from all of this together, just capturing these benefits was super exciting for us. And the industry that we are focusing on now, because we think it's a very large market that will affect a lot of people and there's a lot of current interest there, is the world of retail. So stationary retail faces sort of this two-sided crunch. One is, of course, online retail is taking more and more market share, but now also online retailers are pushing into stationary retail. Think of Amazon buying Whole Foods and also starting its Amazon Fresh stores. Because it's not that brick and mortar retail in on itself is dead. What is dead is anonymous shopping. or will be dead soon. It just doesn't know it yet. We all know that we are highly affected by recommendations and personalization in online retail or e-commerce in general. And of course, this has gone into more stationary fields like Starbucks, but also the Amazon Go stores or Whole Foods now as well. And then just for example, Amazon makes 25% of its revenue from its upsell and cross-sale, so meaning basically from its recommendation engine. While on the other hand, the classical stationary retailer knows nothing about their customers. And so here we come in with a double business value proposition. One, of course, automating the checkout, which is mainly reducing cost and process effort. And on the other hand, enabling the retailers to use AI on the phone of the user and with very cheap camera devices that they can place throughout the stores to first of all enable a very cost-effective and very, for them at least, low technical complexity solution at a very low price point. And at the same time, learning a lot about their customers and having a browser-like interface to them. Because if you give your customers, your shoppers, a real benefit, meaning they don't have to wait in line and have all kinds of other convenience features, to have a screen or ideally their own phone open while they are shopping, then not only will our cameras and our visual intelligence tell you a lot about how they behave inside your stores, but you have also a direct line of immediate and interactive communication with them. So you basically fulfill the same value proposition that you have in e-commerce, only actually even better, because we all know with a physical and haptic experience in a real store, you can become even more personal. It's a little bit, so what are we automating here actually, you might ask? If employees in your store would not cost you anything or very little, then ideally as a retailer, you would want every customer be accompanied by his or her personal assistant, which of course is not economically feasible, but what if you could automate that? What if you can give a virtual assistant to every of your individual shoppers who knows them personally and addresses them in a personalized way and guides them through their shopping trip? This, of course, is the dream of every retailer, because we all know that this will increase convenience, this will increase the basket size eventually, obviously, and thus the bottom line and top line of the retailers, and make all of our shopping experiences more convenient.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So how do you go about solving these type of problems?
So maybe also to tell you a little bit about like why do we feel like our solution is necessary as well, and then of course how do we go about getting there. Amazon Go and so many others like Standard Cognition, Trigo Vision are also having a relatively heavy-handed approach to solving exactly that by putting a lot of cameras throughout the store, like literally thousands, and having a lot of cloud compute power to basically observe your every move. But we said we will be able to deliver most of the business value here at a much lower price point and with much less intrusiveness. So instead of one big advantage of running your AI embedded is that the video data that it runs on never leaves your device. So you don't have to worry about it getting hacked on its way to the cloud or on the cloud, or the AI provider doing who knows what with it now or in the future. So that's a big advantage that we also just wanted to show that it's possible to affect the way that this is like the road that this whole topic is going to take. And so the main challenges that we of course had to face is we need to solve this conundrum of basically delivering the same business value proposition, the same service level as something like Amazon Go, but at a price point of basically a simple scan and go app. So hitting really the sweet spot of offering the perfect combination of cheap and awesome. But by focusing on the hardware that every shopper has in their pocket, the smartphone, and offloading as much of the computation and also networking as possible onto that device, you can save a tremendous amount, not only in hardware cost, which means you have a lot of very low capex for our solution, but also it's much less technical complexity for you, because you do not need to install all kind of hardware. You do not need to install high-grade networking equipment that needs to be maintained and operated at your local store. So our main challenge is bringing all of this, what is usually distributed over many powerful devices, into a single device that then communicates just the end result of all our analysis to our backend. And the main ingredient, as so often, the right vision, the right plan, and of course the right people. And specifically for the latter one, we've put a lot of effort into building up a very great team of seasoned experts in a diverse set of fields, because to build a real product like this, you do not only need top-class machine learning or deep learning experts, but you also need very experienced embedded computer vision people who will be able to wrap your dedicated and optimized deep learning models into highly optimized plus library code. But you also need backend and app engineers who are very comfortable working with latest technology to wrap all of that in a good and usable product. And getting at least one or two of each of those as a fresh founded startup, it was quite challenging, but we are very happy and grateful that we managed to overcome this challenge by being inspiring enough, by providing an exciting workplace where people can really feel the impact that they are creating and be able to really push the technological boundaries of our time in this field.
Max, when you look at the data science projects that you've got that are probably the most impactful projects at this moment in time, and you've obviously talked about retail, can you go into a little bit more detail about the machine learning from the video perception and then the user behavior, kind of psychographic analysis, and what that kind of looks like, and maybe explain it as maybe a technical 10-year-old?
Yes, I'll give my best. So as you mentioned or alluded to already, the deep learning or machine learning part of what we do is split into two things. The first thing is the video analysis. So basically teaching the camera to understand what it sees, just as if a human would do. And then from these things that it recognizes, like what you put into your shopping cart or not, if you scanned it or not, if you properly classified it, identified it, how you move throughout the store, how long you wait in front of the shelf, like all of these different data points that tell us a lot about who you are, how you shop, how you typically behave. And this aggregated data, which is just kilobytes in size per shopping trip, because these are just flashpoints, let's say, or your behavioral fingerprint. This is the data that we do store and collect, and on which we then run later your typical, as you mentioned, psychographic analysis of profiling users, and then being able to in turn personalize our service to meet their respective preferences.
So my final question, with embedded AI being obviously a relatively new kid on the block, how do you see this as being able to set the foundation for a wider goal of being able to democratize it?
Yes, glad that you mentioned that. This was basically one of our founding motivations and going into this technology deeper, because at the moment, a lot of the cloud-based AI, if you want to push the technological boundary there, first of all, you need massive technological skill and capital. Just training something like GPT-3, world-class OpenAI natural language processing and generation algorithm, just training it once costs you about $4 million just for their hardware and energy consumption involved. This is nothing that everyone or even every business can do. But even if you move aside from that and just using those, you will at least have to have the technological capability and knowledge how to properly set up a cloud account and collect that data and train it and so on. And that, to some of your listeners, that might sound trivial, but we know that there are many companies out there for whom this is already a major technical AI or embedded AI. Basically enables you to have self-contained modules. You just buy a device and it works. You plug it into power, you put a battery into it, and it does what it's supposed to do. And the interface can be made as easy as a very simple mobile app. So it's really something that everybody can use, and everybody can use to basically augment or improve their own businesses. And this is really what we're also in the long term trying to push. Starting from smart self-checkout and then overall enabling a smart store as a very low price point, because you just have these devices will be pretty cheap and very low technical complexity because they are all plug and play. And then adding more value and new business lines for your respective business. And then you, of course, can go from there into smart city and so many other applications.
It's really exciting, the applications that you could see from going from smart store to smart city, and then the compounding effect for the convenience that could come for the end user.
Exactly. This is how we are basing. Technology is based to be relatively use case agnostic and modular, because once you have a proper smart camera with a good user interface and a good integration into mobile and also different backend endpoints, then you can easily scale that to different use cases. All you need is to train it on different data, but then you know how to make that available in a way that your everyday person can use and benefit from it. And this is exactly sort of the vision that we are striving for. Make the world-class cutting-edge AI available really to everyone to reap its benefits.
That's a nice way to end the podcast. You have been listening to Max Fiedler, CTO and MD at Nomitri. Max has been giving an overview about his journey to now, how Nomitri was set up, some of the problems that they're looking to solve. We talked also about the opportunity to democratize AI from going from smart store to smart city and the opportunities for everybody to benefit from this. Max, thank you very much for your time today.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.